Roman is the biggest bad guy character in professional wrestling.
When's the last time you got laid?
French toast is the exchange student that you have like a 3-week affair with.
Like, we can see that you don't have pants on.
Can we tell the truth about Dusty sooner or later?
Bro, less people wanted that than are currently watching our stream.
And you know Vince, and you still think, are these true? It's like...
Welcome to the Mark It Down podcast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Mark It Down podcast. My name is Nick Cummings, and I'm just going to start this show off the bat by applauding James for being here. James had dental surgery yesterday, and this show was so good, he's still here tonight. We are unfortunately going to have to limit his talking. Therefore, instead of what we usually do and going down the normal order of the show, we're going to jump around to the more important bits so that James can get to them. And then when he unfortunately is unable to speak anymore, I'll take us the rest of the way. So let us get to the most important of bits, which started with some announcements to be made by the EVPs, Nicholas and Matthew Jackson. They were going to announce them earlier in the show, but decided it would be better to do it live and in the ring. So after what was a quick video package for Sting's final match, in which the Young Bucks lost, Tony Schiavone introduces the Bucks, and they come down. Real quick in the chat, 2P saying 2024 will be AEW's best year so far. It's certainly starting that way. Maybe World's End wasn't the best end of 2023, but since then, I think AEW has been pretty hot as a product. Back to the Jacksons. Tony Schiavone introduced them, and as they came to the ring, he applauded them on their beautiful introductions, even though they got their asses beat. And then this enrages Nicholas. I was reading my own name. I apologized in the chat, Harris.
We'll explain shortly.
And so Nicholas throws Schiavone out of the ring. Nicholas says that they're then moving past what happened on Sunday, especially since Sting and Darby cheated because Sting had his sons come in and beat them up. However, as he is reminded by Matthew, they ended Sting's career, and nobody can take that away from them, which I think somebody called that on Sunday. I think it might have been you, James. Matthew then takes the mic and starts to move on, first saying that they will be entering the tag team tournament for the newly vacated championships, and then they begin to make their announcements. Their first announcement involves a little bit of housekeeping for the Elite. The first thing being that after Hangman Adam Page put his hand on 2 officials on Sunday during his match, they unfortunately have to suspend Hangman from the Elite indefinitely and without pay. The Bucks then move on to say that because he hasn't been showing up to any of his dates, and he's been doing so without any explanation, even though there's a very clear one, Kenny Omega has been fired from the Elites. Very clearly, Kenny has diverticulitis. He can't show up. Although I did hear he was at like a Final Fantasy con this weekend, and while he was looking, not his usual bulky self, at least he's out and about, and that is a very good sign. The Bucks are then going to make their second announcement when they are interrupted by Eddie Kingston, who comes down, yes, in sweats and Timbs, because shout out Eddie. And he says that, all right, you guys said if I talk crap about you, I'd be fine. Throws a bunch of money at Nick and attempts to start talking shit. However, Nick doesn't take this lightly, and the two get in each other's faces. Nicholas, force of habit. They get in each other's faces. They start shoving, and this eventually leads to Matthew low-blowing Eddie. The two then put Kingston in position for the EVP trigger, and as they're about to go for it, we then hear the motherfucking coin drop, and Kazuchika Okada comes running down to the ring, apparently for the save. He gets there, he helps out Eddie, gets Nicholas and Matthew off of him, and it appears that they communicate they're going to go after the Bucks together. However, as Eddie steps forward, Okada pulls him back with his belt, grabs his arm, and hits him with the Rainmaker.
Rainmaker!
That was about 20% of what James had left. Matthew then grabs a mic and announces Okada. Not only is he all elite, he is the newest member of the elites. The elite. Break it down. So James, a lot happened in this segment. A lot of things I never thought I would see. I never thought I'd see Okada in the elite, although I know he is very good friends with the Bucks. This is still mind-boggling to me. I never thought I would see Kenny Omega be fired from the elite, considering he is one of the creators and also has pretty much been the leader of it since it started. So, and then obviously having Okada in AEW is insane. So a lot to break down here, James. You can take it from whatever angle you would like to take it from.
First of all, most important point to make. Ow. Second point I'd like to make. Wow.
Well played.
Third point. Okada immediately feels like a huge deal. This is the guy who everyone was worried leaving New Japan. Could he feel important the way he feels important in New Japan? And obviously it's too early to tell. But immediately, in one segment, we have established him as an important player. We have established him as part of a unit, the head of a unit, at the head of an important unit. And he's immediately going after a championship. He has to be going after Eddie, and he has to be going after at the very least, the AEW crown.
Yeah, the AEW Continental Championship. Maybe not necessarily the Continental Crown in total, but at least definitely the AEW Championship.
And just if I may, this is a unit that's going to work on a lot of levels because it's somebody that Okada is going to be comfortable working with because he has a long history with them. It's going to set up, now that Kenny has been booted from the elite, it's going to set up probably Okada versus Kenny at some point. And it's going to set up probably Kenny with two partners, Eddie being one of them. And who will that third be? We saw in the comments, we saw Chupi say Danielson and Eddie should team up against the Bucks. Maybe Eddie joins the BCC against Heel Elite for Blood and Guts. Maybe, but I think Danielson's going to be busy with someone else, as we saw in the main event.
Yep.
So, because I'm a broken idiot, Danny. Why is James holding his face so much? Because I'm a broken idiot. But I do think
I saw Danny is lurking in the shadows, and he just keeps messing with James.
But I know there's been a lot of fear, there's been a lot of worry, there's been a lot of trepidation, and it's too early. But I can't think of a better way they could have officially debuted him. We know where his interests lie. We know what he's looking after. We know what's important to him, and we know that he's going for the gold. So great stuff from Okada. He looked like a star here.
I gotta cut, guys. Sorry, I gotta cut real quick. Look, James, I know you're in a lot of pain right now. Okay, I know you had teeth removed, and blah blah blah, and it hurts. So whatever. But we really need something a little more clippable, a little more shorts worthy. We need like a zany over the top. Oh my God, Okada's here kind of thing. Can you give us a take like that, please? Can we just get a quick take?
I don't think I've got it.
Teamwork on 3. 1, 2, 3. Teamwork. You got this, James. All right, let's get a quick take.
And he's gone.
I think he's our unofficial producer boy of the evening.
Oh, great.
Okada is all elite. Okada is part of the elite, and Kenny Omega has got the boot. Can't think of a better way to debut.
Okay, but we need something like a oh my gosh, or like a something like along those lines. Just that extra exclamation. I think you do. I think you do. I think you got it in you. One more try.
You got one out of me.
Do you want me to stay on for it? It will make you feel more comfortable.
I need him for like at least 2 more segments, Danny. Stop burning out all what he's got left.
I feel it hitting too. 1, 2, 3. Woo! Okada is in AEW. He is a part of the elite, and Kenny Omega is no more.
That sounded like it hurts so much.
I think I'm bleeding a little bit.
Probably. You probably should have spit the gauze out onto the floor. To get things a little bit back on track here, I, for one, am at that level of excited. I love Okada, and I fortunately don't get to watch him a lot, or hadn't been, because he's in New Japan, and I just don't want to stay up till all the hours of the morning, past where I normally stay up. So I always catch highlights, and maybe I'll watch back matches if I hear they're amazing. But now I get to see this motherfucker every week, or almost every week. They're going to be on Collision. I'm definitely going to at least try to catch, maybe if not the show, that whole segment at some point. I can't tell you the last time I watched a Collision segment. And him joining the heel Bucks as EVPs in the suit, look great in the suit, by the way. It's perfect for him because, like you said, James, he comes in as a very big deal. He comes in looking like $1 billion, or however many Okada bucks that translates to. And he's then put with 2 of the best talkers in the company, and somebody who I think speaks some English, but I don't really know how good it is.
It is. I probably wouldn't have him cutting every promo, but his English is very good.
Okay, but then he's at least in a position where he doesn't have to carry said promos. He'll be able to throw out whatever few lines he needs to, and then we'll be fine. So I think this is the perfect position for him. And as you mentioned, this sets up a lot of stuff in the future with Eddie, with hopefully a returning Kenny Omega, and whatever other allies Eddie can get. We a 2-piece. I haven't watched Collision, I think, since the second episode either. But we could also get other allies, because I know he's a little busy, but we did see Adam Copeland, take a shot at the Bucks earlier, and the Bucks said, if as they did with Eddie, if you're going to talk shit about us, we will fine you. Perhaps Adam Copeland becomes an unlikely ally of Eddie Kingston as he faces off against the Young Bucks. So I think we have a lot of different ways we could go here. And eventually this will all come back to haunt the Bucks, because they just turned against 2 of their best friends, or at least what we thought were 2 of their best friends, for one who we haven't really seen be best friends with them on screen before.
Well, can I say, I don't think they turned on Hangman. I think they just did what they had to do to get Hangman off TV. And when he comes back, there's every chance he aligns with the Elite, because they'll both be heels. It just depends on how long he's really going to be out for, and where the story is at this point. But if I could say, I think it's fantastic that they brought in Okada with immediate direction. Like, AEW has a very standard debut, and it's awesome. I love it, but it doesn't hold up to critique very well. I saw it was a little bit of a bad faith take, but a really interesting short where a guy just broke down every AEW debut, and everyone boils down to just be yourself and everyone's going to love you. And while I think there's a little bit more to it than that, I think it's a very generalization sort of take on AEW debuts. And Okada has immediately broken that trend, immediately has purpose, has direction, and it's even a little bit of a swerve. I don't think a lot of people saw him coming in and aligning with the heel EVPs. I think that's a very interesting take, especially when this guy's leaving New Japan, where he was the perennial babyface of that company for how many years, James?
Like a decade.
A decade long.
Basically a decade.
A decade of being the face of a company, coming into another company. What's one thing that even I've probably said personally? He's just going to be another guy here. He can't come in and win the title immediately, which is what I think a lot of people that come in expect, when it's not the reality. So it's like, what is he going to do? How's he not going to get lost in the shuffle? They've already found a way. And yeah, it's early doors. Hell, things could go wrong, but things could go really right. And this is a really good start. It's a lot more fascinating. It's a lot more interesting than a normal debut. Like, I kind of thought they were going to do a double debut next week, and I was super into that because, All Out was still, in my opinion, the greatest AEW pay-per-view ever. And the double debut, or really triple debut with Ruby, it was the big part of that. But doing Okada like this, I think works out very well. And you mentioned that Danielson interacted with Ospreay later. I really want Danielson and Eddie to team up now after their feud. If I'm gonna have to sit through another Danielson pay-per-view loss, I at least want it to lead to something more, So not set up another match for him to lose. I would like for him and Eddie, especially after the backstage promo and the trainer's room they uploaded online after the show. It was so good and so emotional.
Great.
It was beautiful. It literally is better than everything they put on television. And that's not a knock on what they put on television. It's just that's how good all of those backstage vignettes were after the pay-per-view last night. And those all should have been on TV. But I thought this was a phenomenal way to bring a guy in, introduce him. Now you know his direction. Maybe you don't know who he is yet, but you have an idea, and you already know that he has something to do. And I don't think they could have done much more to make this an impactful debut, especially considering that it's not anything anyone saw coming or anyone called. And if you did call it, I don't know, what kind of drugs are you on? Like, let me know. I'm interested.
I saw a few people speculating he could join them on Reddit, and people were like, that would be dumb. Why are you going straight heel? James, I know Danny said he was the face of the company, but he wasn't always a face in the company in New Japan. So he could be a bit of a dick.
He's always been, I don't know how to put it. He's Okada. And no matter who he's wrestling, he's Okada. And I don't want to classify him as a tweener because he's not. More often than not, he is technically the baby face, but he's also kind of an asshole because he's Okada. Like, he is Roman Reigns. He is everything Roman Reigns of the bloodline wanted to be as a champion. He is everything that Roman Reigns sees himself as a champion with this long-ass reign, this dominant championship reign. Except Okada did it all on his own every time, as opposed to Roman, who hasn't won a match without help. So
more rightfully cocky, which sometimes leads to him being a dick.
Exactly. He knows he's the Rainmaker. He knows he's Okada, and sometimes that did come across. But I think he is going to lend himself very well to being a heel here, because I think it's just going to be more of the same. Like what we're getting from the Bucks with the EVP gimmick is they know how important they are, and they're just rubbing it in everyone's faces, whether or not they like it or not. And I think that's going to be key to what this Okada character is going to be for a while too. So I think this was the right way to debut him. I know Dragoon is having a heart attack somewhere, because he lost the face of New Japan. That face of New Japan joined the Young Bucks, and he's immediately feuding with Eddie Kingston. 3 things that he's not happy about.
Meanwhile, in New Japan, the new face of that company is Jack Perry, and I think we might have to put him on Suicide Watch.
I mean, I'll watch him. I'll turn my back. But James, quick note, Dragoon's not here. No one knows who he is, so we're just wasting airtime talking about this jabroni. So, we're already an inside baseball podcast because all wrestling podcasts are inside baseball podcasts.
But we're the
only going inside
podcast.
Baseball on our inside baseball, and that's a little bit too much considering that baseball is not a dying sport, but it's a sport that people with short attention spans don't appreciate.
It's not a dying sport. It's just that the majority of their fan base is starting to die.
Yeah,
that's a bummer.
Yeah,
true, man. Really. Old people love baseball.
Yeah, but anyway, let's not waste any more time on that jabroni. What's next, Rev?
All right, I'm sure we're going to talk about Okada a lot more in the future.
Wait, there is one last thing because we got to address this comment in the chat from Harris. Asking Nick to apologize.
That's from Harris, not Eric.
I said Harris.
Oh, I thought you said Eric.
It sounded like Eric, but
you just got garbled.
I'm sorry. I just don't have teeth.
Okay, I'll explain it so you can save your shit here. Harris said in one of our chats that they pretty much debuted Okada the same way they debuted Adam Cole. I disagreed and was then proven wrong by James because I was like, Cole didn't come in to save anybody from an elite beatdown, and he was like, yeah, no, he came in to save Jungle Boy and then super kicked him in the face. I completely forgot Jungle Boy was there. So I just thought Kenny was talking shit, and then Cole came out and psyched everybody out by actually joining with them. I forgot the whole he super kicked Jungle Boy in the face part.
Yeah.
So
I wouldn't say that he didn't come out to save him.
Yeah.
He just happened to be there. And then he just was the one to get kicked. So like you're wrong, but you're not like so far off because he wasn't in any way was he out there to save him. He was interrupting Kenny's promo. He wasn't interrupting the beatdown that already happened.
But I think the concept was the same thing as what Okada did, which is the Bucks were already beating Eddie down. The Elite were already beating Jungle Boy down. And then he attacked Jungle Boy with that super kick the same way Okada hit the Rainmaker on Eddie.
Right. I guess the big difference would be Okada made it seem like he was going to help Eddie and attack the Bucks. And obviously at that point, Jungle Boy was basically dead. So,
and you know what? It was effective. So why not?
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
all out, literally the best night in AEW history.
Yeah. So
Sunday is making a hard case for it.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, Sunday was great.
Maybe not in terms of talent coming in, but in terms of pay-per-views, that was one of, if not their best. So, all right, let's move along. And again, we're going to bounce around the show a little bit, and I'm going to go to something that sounds really weird, which was a Kill Switch versus Daddy Magic Matt Menard. This match was very, very quick. I think it was like 3 minutes. I didn't even see the end. I had to go take my food out of the oven. I assume Kill Switch won with the lariat or pile driver. I don't even know. It doesn't really matter because after the match, Kill Switch continued to attack Daddy Magic, and eventually that led to Daniel Garcia coming down for the save. But Nick Wayne, who was at ringside with Christian on commentary and his mother, he jumped into the ring to join the fray, and the numbers game overcame Garcia, and he was hit with a Wayne's World. After that, the patriarchy, started to go up the ramp to the top, and they turned around to show off. But as they did, a returning Rated R superstar, Adam Copeland, comes running out, throws Kill Switch off of the stage. I think he was supposed to throw him through a table. I'm not sure if he got the table. He then choked out Nick Wayne while staring Christian right in the eyes. And as the two of them again continued to face off, as Nick Wayne was completely choked out, Mother Wayne came up from behind and tried to low blow Christian. But low blow Copeland, but he was able to catch her arm and fend her off. Christian then made a beeline to the back, and Copeland chased him all the way through the concessions into the back and all the way out of the arena, where Christian then stole a car and drove away, pausing briefly to hold the title out the window to rub it in Copeland's face. Copeland, obviously very pissed off, then turned around to the camera and challenged Christian to Cope Cage 3 in an I Quit match in Toronto in a couple of weeks, which Tony Khan does make official. So, Danny, we have Adam Copeland back after he took a concerto a couple of weeks ago, and it was a little quick, but I'm excited for their third match. An I Quit match between the two of them is going to be great. It is also for the TNT Championship. I forgot to mention that, but this is again, a little too soon for me, I thought, but it was a really good way to bring Copeland back.
Ooh, interesting. So I just want to point out a couple of small things. One, while you were explaining that, James went to take a sip of his drink, but he closed his eyes and grimaced ahead of time before he even started taking that sip. And I just feel like he really made a meal out of that. And I wanted to point it out. I didn't want to interrupt you. So I'll say it now. Second, there was a very small detail that it really popped me for no good reason during this. But when Copeland was chasing Christian backstage, Christian did the movie trope thing of just throwing stuff in his way. And one of those things was a table. And I swear to God, it worked. He really got it in a way where it completely covered the hallway.
He Austin powered it with the bar. It was completely Perfect.
So
yeah.
like Copeland had to actually move it, and the camera started panning away because it seemed like it took more than like half a second, which isn't a long time, but considering
chase.
like those are precious seconds that gave him
Just
that
enough
extra
time to get in
time.
the car.
Yeah, which thank God, thank God someone was in there. A poor guy. I hope you have insurance. You should be good because it was on camera, but you never know.
Makes it easier for the police report.
Exactly. The other thing I loved, and this is more so the match, there's something about I actually like babyface Matt Menard. He's good, and again to tie into like the post show interview videos that AEW put up, like him and Daniel Garcia was really good. Like there's something about him that's a lot more earnest than I realized. I like it. I'm not saying he's in a perfect role. He's never going to win a match like this, and he's getting squashed, and that's fine. But he's actually someone I can have like sympathy for in these roles, and it's interesting because I didn't expect that from him. As much as we love him and his heel shtick, I didn't know if it would translate to being a babyface, and it does. So that's pretty cool. And I like that he hasn't given up on Daniel Garcia just because the JAS has disbanded.
As opposed to Angelo Parker, who really does not listen to the bro code and just went straight for Ruby instead.
Well, I'm going to say bro code is bullshit. But bro code is a
if anything, the dad
bitterness.
code. The dad code.
Sure.
He was Garcia's other dad.
I mean, screw dads too, right? I don't know what you're expecting to get out of me here, but
wrong audience. Wrong audience.
I think it's interesting. I like that they're both doing stuff, and they're dropped off the face of the earth and are doing nothing. Like, hey, that storyline's giving Ruby something to do, and it's giving Parker something to do. So let's take it. What's up, Nas? But I agree that maybe it's a little too soon to have Copeland come back, but really the concerto was to write him off for the pay-per-view, because if they did this match at the pay-per-view, it would have been too soon.
Yeah.
But if they're going to Canada, of course they're going to do it there, and that's fine. It doesn't bother me too much. Like, there's a stark difference between what Edge is doing in AEW and what everyone else is doing. And basically what Copeland's doing is just he's doing the WWE style, but the way he likes it, not the way WWE likes it. And he's taking that and he's doing it under the AEW umbrella, which going into his debut, it was something I was worried about, but he's done it very well to the point where he's won me over, to the point where being in the crowd at World's End, I wasn't even mad when he won the title. Like, granted, it worked out as the best way possible where Christian still left the building with the title. But like, when he just won, I was like, oh, cool. This is fine. This match was so good. This feud has been so good that I'm on board with this guy that I was so against towards the end of his WWE run. And he's turned that around. And so I just see it as like, he is almost doing the Codyverse, but he's doing it better so far, where I'm like, I don't want to turn on you yet. And I'm enjoying that. So I don't mind it, just because I wish they were going to Canada a little later. If it wasn't like 2 weeks, 3 weeks from now, whenever it is, but it's not too terrible because that match at World's End was one of my favorite matches of the year last year. And being there definitely skews my opinion a lot, but I'm on board with seeing this again. And I quit match in AEW. I'm into that. I'm surprised they didn't call it something else, but I'm excited about it.
Yeah, I think that hopefully that match is at least like the last 45 minutes of the show, if not the last hour of the show. That's how much time I think they could probably get and do a really, really good job with. But I think I agree with you, Danny, just because it was just a scheduling thing with Copeland coming back. If they weren't in Canada for a few more weeks, I think they probably would have kept Copeland off air longer. James, I was wondering if you agree with the two of us that, obviously it's a scheduling thing, but maybe he came back a little too quickly. Just partly, in terms of storyline.
In terms of storyline, yes, I think he probably came back a little too quickly. And then I remember that this guy is really old and we don't have that much time with him. So I'm okay with things being
In the ring.
on a little, in terms of an in-ring career, we don't have that much more time with him. So I'm okay with them sort of fast tracking what would be a normal timeline for this storyline. So it's fine, and I thought it was well done. I thought everybody did their part. I like Daddy Magic a lot, just like you guys do, but I thought he looked too good against Killswitch at the pay-per-view. Like he pretty handily kept him out of the action at the pay-per-view. I'm like, you're fucking Luchasaurus, man. You got to look better than this. So I'm glad that he dominated him in this matchup. But I thought this was I thought this was a good segment. I'm glad Garcia is still involved because I don't know if I actually want him to take the title or not, but I didn't hate the concept of it. So
not off of Christian, but I do want him. I think he will make a good TNT champion in the near future.
That's the thing. I don't need him to be the guy to beat Christian, but I think Garcia has earned a mid-card title at this point. I mean, granted, I think a lot of guys have probably earned a shot at a mid-card title at this point.
Crowded.
But, I mean, hey, there's 3 of them now? Oh, I don't know if you heard that, but there was like a thuffer and thuckatash that came out of my mouth almost, and it sounded better than when Roman did it. But I liked everything about this. I'm ready for this story to wrap up, and I don't know if it can wrap up if Copeland wins, but I want him to win just because I'm a sucker for the good guy. But I would not be mad about Christian moving on to something else. I just don't know what Christian does after this. That's really the big thing.
Is there a thing? What can Christian do after this? I feel like
that's my point. Yeah.
Losing has to be the end goal, and
eventually Killswitch turns on him, right? And then there's that feud.
I could see them going for the trios title at some point. Who are the Acclaimed? I could see them going for the trios title at some point, and I think that would actually be pretty funny if they took the title off Billy Gunn.
Actually, there's something there.
But I don't know. I don't know. No matter what, I think all of these guys have options. It's just a little hard to see it right now through everything because we've been so caught up in it for so long.
Yeah, I can definitely see Killswitch maybe accidentally crossing Christian in a small way, or at least something Christian perceives as a large way when they face off, and then that continues to sow those seeds. I do like the idea of the trios championships because then maybe eventually you have Killswitch either get pinned or something he does cost them those titles. Then that happens twice, and then eventually Christian just berates him and beats him down so much we do get that turn. So I think that's a good route for them to take, James. Also, Danny, shout out to you for shouting out all of the backstage stuff they put on YouTube. All that shit was fucking awesome.
It was so good, dude. It was so much more dramatic than I was expecting.
Especially really the Daddy Magic one, especially.
Yeah, that one and the Eddie Bryan one, where I was like, bro, I'm like, why am I getting emotional about this, bro? I just watched Sting retire. I didn't expect this to also affect me the same way.
It hit almost just as hard.
Yeah, can I give a quick shout out to Sting? Sting, you're the best. I love you. You're my childhood favorite. My first wrestling show, I painted my face like Sting. I was like 8 years old, maybe.
Please tell me you have pictures of that.
I hope not, honestly. But I went. You teamed up with. I remember you teamed up with Goldberg and Hulk Hogan. You guys won. It was great. I was ecstatic. I don't like Hulk Hogan anymore. Goldberg depends on the day, But Sting, that's never changed.
Goldberg, it depends on if he's going against Bray Wyatt or Dolph Ziggler. Bray Wyatt, boo. Dolph Ziggler, spear.
It's crazy. Brock Lesnar, oh my god.
Yeah, everyone gets booed.
It's fantastic, but Sting, it's never changed. The only reason I watched, the only reason I checked out TNA early days, Sting, you're the best, Sting. Thanks for everything. You okay, James?
Well said.
I'm okay.
You got one segment left in you, buddy?
I'm here.
All right, I'm going to shoot back all the way down to the main event just so James can talk about it in case he ends up dying, which was Will Ospreay facing off against Kyle Fletcher. Obviously, Ospreay coming off that big win against Takeshita on Sunday. It was in what was an unbelievable match. I know the Sting. I said this on Sunday. You got to put the Sting match aside because it's just on its own stratosphere. Ospreay Takeshita was match of the night on Sunday. But Ospreay obviously coming in very beat up. He still had that big laceration on his back, or at least a little bit. You could see it. Very big bruise. We had a spot where Ospreay was able to counter a power bomb with a DDT and set up for the hidden blade. However, Fletcher was able to duck it blind and hit a snake eyes into the second turnbuckle on Ospreay. The two of them rolled out onto the apron, and Ospreay hit an Oz cutter out there. And what was I thought going to be the beginning of the end of the match because there was only 5 minutes left, and then they went to commercial. This episode was like 10 minutes of overrun, so we had a lot more time after that. I will move forward in the match where after he countered the buckle brainbuster, which is what Takeshita hit on Sunday, Ospreay was able to then hit a kick and then an avalanche poison Rana before hitting a running back elbow right in Fletcher's face that Fletcher was able to kick out of. The two then had a great back and forth with a lot of counters and thrust kicks, and that eventually led to a Fletcher thrust kick, him hitting the ropes, but running straight into a Spanish fly that he was again able to kick out of. Ospreay hit a hidden blade that Fletcher was able to kick out of, which I could not believe. Really quick.
Wow, James doesn't want to What a guy.
I think James does.
I don't have it in me.
So, as I was saying, Fletcher kicks out of the hidden blade after all of the damage he's taken. And when Ospreay lines up for another one, Fletcher turns to face him, telling him to just bring it, pointing at his face. So Ospreay pulls up the arm sleeve, absolutely decks his boy, and gets the 1, 2, 3. After the match, Ospreay checks on Fletcher, helps him out of the ring. I do believe going towards that carny piece of shit, Don Callis, who was again on commentary and again did a very good job. When Bryan Danielson music hits, Danielson comes down to the ring, and he and Ospreay have a stare down as they circle each other, and the Dynamite goes off the air. So, James, you can talk about the match if you want, but I know you are having mixed emotions about Danielson versus Ospreay because while you're excited to see this match, I think you think it's going to happen at All In London. And, oh, no, you just don't want this to happen? Oh, pourquoi?
First of all,
He did it.
You seem so dead inside.
I am. Don't worry, I'm dead on the outside, too.
Can I just say real quick, you look very Italian today.
I don't know, actually. I thank you. I think.
Sure.
All right, it was Eric who said Wembley. In the chat,
but which doesn't make any sense.
But you guys
he was
are
also
so alike, it's understandable.
Serious. No, I don't want this match to happen because I can't take another Bryan loss, man. I've accepted the fact that Bryan is destined to lose every title match he's in, which is why I don't look forward to them. But now he's just going to be losing matches too. I can't do it. I can't do it. And it's gonna be fucking amazing. It's gonna be the best match of the night.
It's gonna be the match of the year. Honestly,
it's
I already declaring it now. Obviously, besides Makito versus Suzuki, obviously. But.
Yeah, but I mean, like within reason, the best match. You know, like it's a competition for two at this point, and it's gonna be great. But I am, wow.
I didn't put that up.
I put it up.
I know you put it
up. Yeah, how many painkillers are you on, James?
He just left.
No. Anyway, I agree with his points, though. I'm so sick of watching Bryan lose, bro. He's the best wrestler in the world, and he loses every big match, and I'm so sick of it. He's beaten Okada, and that's it. His only other pay-per-view win was against Miro in the tournament to determine the number one contender for Hangman. I think he's lost every pay-per-view match since there wasn't like a tag match, and even then, he's in the Anarchy in the Arena match. He was the guy to get pinned.
He beat
Like,
Okada. He beat Okada.
That's what I said.
Oh, you
Okada
said
and Miro.
My bad.
Yeah.
And then
Those are like
he went to a time limit draw against Kenny Omega in his first AEW match, which was probably the peak of him winning outside of Okada.
Yeah, seriously, it's just absurd at this point. And it sounds terrible that we're complaining about literally what is going to be match of the year if it happens, but like, I just want Brian to win, like so bad. Like Brian's the only person I gotta. When it's like, okay, when the wrestler says something's fine, like who are we to get mad? Brian's the only one where I'm like, no, you don't know what you're talking about, bro. Like you need to win. I'm so sick of this shit. But it is what it is. You know it. I haven't heard that name in a while.
Good to have you back. Yeah, even if you're not watching wrestling too much, we're just glad to have you. We can try to catch you up. Yeah, I do agree with you guys. I don't feel as strongly about Brian losing as I think the both of you do, because I understand why he does, but I do get where you're coming from. Like, yeah, it sucks to see him constantly lose. And yes, it's Bryan Danielson, and yes, he will always be one of the best wrestlers on the planet. But at some point, the guy's got to win a big match, right? Because he needs to keep that credibility. Because otherwise, James, every time he ends up fighting somebody like a Will Ospreay, we're just going to assume he loses, and then we're all going to end up being like, well, can Brian win the big one in kayfabe?
The only thing that's giving me any type of hope for this matchup and Brian is that sooner than later, and it's definitely going to be sooner, Ospreay is going to cut off from Callis, and maybe a loss to Brian will be what turns Callis against Ospreay. And I don't know, but I need something to get me through the dark nights, and that hope is what's it. But it was a great match. Danielson's going to retire in a year. Who cares if he loses? I do.
I also do. Second, yes, exactly.
If Sting can retire undefeated in AEW with the title, I can hope for a Brian win somewhere, sometime in the timeline. It'd be nice.
Also, he's just not gonna wrestle full time anymore. He's not really retiring. He's just gonna be probably twice a year type of wrestler at that point, I assume.
Yeah, maybe 4 times.
Just put on good matches. Yeah, but like that's what he's been doing. He's been losing from the fucking jump, right? It'd be one thing if he had won a lot before this, but like all he's done is lose to everyone. So like, beating him means kind of nothing. Like everyone's done it. Even someone as low down the card as Daniel Garcia has done it. So it's not just about that. Like, I get where you're coming from, Kevin. And in most circumstances, I agree. But like, first of all, Kevin, it's 11 p.m. You are high as fuck right now. I already know that. But, second of all, James is also high, but he at least had surgery about it,
He's legally high.
Yeah, which is like
prescription
the worst kind of high, but it's not just yeah, that's fine. That's cool. Like, doing drugs is cool. I'm not saying it's not. I'm just saying, but James, you're on drugs. I'm telling you, you're cool for once. God.
It's the nicest thing he said to you on this podcast, man.
But it's not just about like, like the losses do me. Why am I going to keep watching? Like, it's tough because I don't know who your favorites are. So it's like, I can't be like, oh, like, how are you going to feel if so-and-so loses? But it's like, I don't know who you actually like. So it's a little tough to say, but.
Yeah. It's saying Brian's going to end up being AEW secret GM. He pretty much already is. I know Tony, he's part of like that, circle of guys that Tony goes to when it comes to booking advice. So he already has a lot of influence backstage. I think he'll continue to have that influence even when he's not there, on the road every week. Maybe if it comes down to he wrestles 4 matches a year at the 4 big pay-per-views, Full Gear, Revolution, probably All In, and then one more. One of the original ones. I think that would probably be good, and you'd probably be around for enough of the time. But I'm cool with. I do want to see this match. I don't think any of us don't want to see this match. I think you guys are just really nervous and really tired of Bryan losing, and he's probably going to want to put over Will Ospreay because there are a lot of people who are saying, and a lot of reports that are saying Ospreay is going to become the new face of AEW. So I think Bryan is more than willing to help out with that and more than likely put Ospreay over in order to facilitate him shooting to the top of the card. Kevin saying, if they do ever have an on-screen GM character, I would love Bryan in that role. And I think I would too. He already did it once. He was the SmackDown GM when SmackDown was the land of opportunity and still good. So I think he could do it again. I think he'd be really good at it.
I think it's important to point out that Kevin did spell Bryan wrong in this context, but that's fine. Not a big deal. But yeah, I wouldn't mind it either. I think that'd be totally reasonable. I don't know what AEW would look like with GMs, but they've gone back on a lot of their words about not doing certain wrestling trope like things. So they might as well have a GM too at this point. Instead of having Tony Schiavone be like, "Oh, just in," it's fine. Just do it.
As long as he plays it like how Regal played it in NXT, I'm cool. I don't
straight.
Yeah. I do want to just say the main event itself was very good. I want to say I think I enjoyed it more than the Takeshita match, and I love the Takeshita match. I just think that these two guys, their styles are so similar. Like that sequence at the end where they both countered the power bombs, and then Ospreay went for the back kick, and Fletcher ducked that. I thought these guys were just delivering on a different level, and I know that not everyone is 100% convinced on Fletcher yet, but I do think that if he's not on your radar as one of the best talents on either roster right now, I don't know what more he can do. I think this matchup was a brilliant showcase for both men, and I think they both came out looking better because of it. And hard to spiel, yeah.
It's weird. I would believe you more. Yeah, first of all, that comment made me chuckle. I would believe you more if you can, look us in the eyes while you're saying this, Jay, instead of closing your eyes. Like, what are you afraid of, man?
I apologize.
All right.
I will say back to the match, James. I don't know if it was better than Sunday's, but it was very, very good. I did miss a little bit of it trying to set everything up here, but everything I saw was great. Like you said, that ending sequence was just chef's kiss. And I've been sold on Fletcher as a singles guy, at least since he won the Ring of Honor television championship in that scramble match, whatever the heck it was supposed to be. He really showed out there. He showed me a lot. And every singles match he has had since has been spectacular. Now, I think Ospreay is a guy who can take any match to another level. And we saw it here tonight, especially because they're such close friends. So Fletcher is definitely a guy, as I said, he's only 25. So he's a guy we're going to see around for a long time. And he is going to be really, really good in the future. He's already really, really good now. So I think this match was great. And it's going to get a little overlooked because of the Bryan thing. But hopefully it gets remembered as a great television match.
Definitely.
I will never think about this match again.
I figured as much. All right, James, how much you got left in you?
As long as I don't have to do too much, I could stick around for a bit.
All right, okay, so let's head back up to the top of the show where we had an in-ring. Yeah, I know. We bounced all over the place.
I genuinely don't know if I took my antibiotic or not, so now I'm probably going to have to go like another 8 hours without it. I'm in a bad place because I can't overdo the dosage.
Oh my God.
So if you take it now, just don't take it and then take it 8 hours later.
I don't know if I was supposed to have taken it like an hour or two ago, and I don't remember if I did.
So then
like
they
make these
2 hours.
Can't you just like do the math?
But if I took it and I take it again now, that's bad. It's not about pushing it,
Well, if you didn't
just count them.
All right,
Do some
whatever. Well, James does some mental math. Let's go to the top of the show, where, as I said, we had an in-ring interview with Swerve Strickland. Obviously, Swerve coming off his loss in the three-way match for the AEW World Championship, although he did not get pinned. And he's obviously a little depressed about that. And he says he's starting to feel some doubts about whether he deserves a title in AEW or he's just a role player there, thinking maybe him losing was karma for all the bad things he's done since he's joined AEW. However, Sunday felt different for him, as it felt like the first time the people were behind him and truly rooting for him. So he's going to stick to his goal of winning gold in AEW. Obviously, that means he's going to continue to gun for Samoa Joe, and somehow, some way, he will defeat Joe for the AEW Championship. Samoa Joe, at the mere mention of his name, makes his way to the ring and comes down. You know it. That's mean. James had dental surgery. That's just mean.
Mental surgery? What?
Dental surgery. If James had mental surgery, I don't think he would be here with a hole in his head.
I mean, if he did, he'd stop being a Roman Reigns and John Cena fan. So, pros and cons,
As I was saying, Samoa Joe came down to the ring to show the people a real champion, even though they're in Swerve's house. That house is in his world. Swerve then calls out Joe as he is posing, say if he's going to come down to the ring in his ring gear, taunt him, and turn his back to him, they might as well have a title match right now. However, before Joe can respond, the Undisputed Kingdom come out onto the stage, where Adam Cole declares that the most important thing that happened on Sunday was the Undisputed Kingdom. Roddy obviously won the AEW International Championship, and Wardlow won a shot at the AEW Championship. Cole then reminded Joe that the only reason he's champ is because they allowed it, and that with Wardlow having a title shot, Swerve will never become champion, as the only place he'll swerve is away from the title picture before he's forgotten in 6 months. Swerve then asked Cole how many times he's lost his shot in AEW, only to be presented with another opportunity before making a joke that he's enjoying him as the Dr. Claw from Inspector Gadget looking leader of his new little group. And then if he needs more clients, he's got Britt Baker's second cell phone number in his pocket. This obviously enrages Cole, and he challenges Swerve and Joe to face off against the Kingdom next week. And Swerve counters that they should just do it right now. However, Cole's like, nah, dude, that's not how this works. I'm the one who holds all the power here, until he gets cut off by Tony Schiavone. Yeah, remember Tony Schiavone was in the segment? Schiavone cuts him off and says that he's received word from Tony Khan that match will be happening, and it will be happening now. This obviously enrages Adam Cole and pretty much just befuddles Samoa Joe because he wanted no fucking part of this in the first place. So, Danny, I think we have officially completed our Swerve Strickland face turn. He was obviously remorseful for the heel things he has done in the past. He had the crowd truly behind him. He acknowledged that fact. And obviously, this felt a little WWE-ish in the setup and getting this match right after it. But I think it was I don't mean that in a negative way. I think it was done very well. And we had a good segment by all of these guys here.
I see what you mean. I see what Kevin means in the comments that the world title seems so messy right now. But it is in a way, and it's not terrible. Like, this wasn't a great start to the Swerve face turn, in my opinion. I think his promo was a little rough, and it's not a big deal. It's not the end of the world. Like, next week won't be thinking about it at all, and that's fine. It's not a huge deal, but I just noticed he kept cutting his sentences off short, and it just felt like he was always one syllable off, and he would stop early.
He was very emotional in this promo, I must say. So I think that was probably part of it.
I think so too, and that worked when he was showing remorse in a way, talking about how maybe he deserves it. But then when he's like trading barbs and he's having those same pauses, it didn't necessarily work as well. And then Undisputed Kingdom is just like, I don't know if they're too far gone, but especially because I think Revolution was a good showcase for them. I think Roddy looked amazing. I think that was a reasonably clean win. Like, he won the match clean, but it's obviously like all the wear and tear. The whole point of Cassidy's title runs has been the wear and tear catching up to him, which, by the way, brilliant character beat that Orange Cassidy, the person perceived as lazy and a slacker, his biggest fatal flaw is that he actually works too hard and doesn't know when to take a break. It's actually amazing. I love it. But and then Wardlow, like, not necessarily the Meat Madness substitute match, I guess the tofu match, or the impossible match, as it might have been called. I don't remember. That match, who gives a fuck? Like, that match was nothing of a match, but it's still a win that sets him up for a title shot. And after that promo he had last week or the week before, that's a little good. That's a little bit of ice on the pain that is this group. But, like, I don't know. Adam needs to, like, I hate to do this to an injured man, but, like, bro, you got to stand up, man. Like, you can't beat in the chair that worked for Roddy. I can't take you serious as the leader of this group right now. Like, this group is not what it's supposed to be. And, like, to think that MJF is going to come back and feud with them, it's not an exciting prospect in its current state. Luckily, Samoa Joe is so fucking good that, like, he is bulletproof from all this bullshit. And, like, he just comes out and he is so cool every time. Joe is just, like, many of us were in the building at World's End, and I told my friends, I was like, there's a chance Joe walks out as champion. It's not what I thought was going to happen, but I knew it was a possibility. And everyone was shocked when it happened, including me. We're like, this doesn't make any sense. But since then, Joe has been the coolest motherfucker to the point where I'm like, yeah, like, I understand that we should put the title on Swerve soon because he's the hottest thing right now, and you got to capitalize on that stuff. But in a triple threat wasn't the way to do it. And if they're going to stretch it out, I guess this is the way to do it. It's not super exciting, but, Joe will make it work because Joe is so freaking good. And as long as Swerve just stays hot for a little bit longer, because what's the next pay-per-view? April 20-something? Dynasty, right? Isn't that the next pay-per-view?
Yeah. I didn't think it was that late, but yeah, it is. It's
at some point in April. But all they gotta do is hold off till then, and that's fine. And even then, maybe Swerve doesn't win. Who knows what the Hangman situation is gonna be? But I liked it because I also like the fact that you can see Hangman tapped out. Maybe he tapped out because he just couldn't take it anymore and he lost, or maybe he tapped out because that means Swerve doesn't win. And that's a nice bit of character work there that could easily be sewn into this whenever Hangman returns. So, while I didn't really care too much for this opening segment, I'm still optimistic about the directions we're heading in because I trust Joe, and I think I trust Swerve too, even though this week wasn't a great start. Don't trust the Undisputed Kingdom, but I love Kyle O'Reilly, so I don't know. If he gets involved, maybe I'll be a little more interested.
Yeah, we'll get to cool Kyle a bit later. I did want to check, or I did say that I looked it up. AEW Dynasty is April 21st. So we got a little over a month and a half, give or take, until the next one.
Pay-per-view after a holiday? That's wild.
Kevin's saying that Undisputed Kingdom is the X-Men with Cole wheeling around. That's a pretty good crack. I think I agree with most of what you said, Danny. I do trust Swerve. I think, he'll be able to stay hot until the next pay-per-view. And then we'll see what occurs there and who possibly comes back. A lot of rumors considering the name of the pay-per-view. And then also, too,
Natalia?
MJF.
All right, James, I think we did good. I think we did a good job here for everybody. I think we're going to keep the animosity between Swerve and Joe hot enough where even though Joe might think Swerve should go to the back of the line, Swerve is going to get under his skin enough to the point where Joe will accept a match from him at that next pay-per-view. And we kind of set up for next week with the Undisputed Kingdom and after the match that they had, just a small spoiler, they announced Samoa Joe versus Wardlow for the AEW Championship next week at Big Business. So that all of this stuff, including the match after, did help set up for that announcement.
I'm really, really surprised that they're already doing Wardlow versus Joe.
Same.
I feel like this is an indicator that we're probably going to get somebody coming back, whether that's MJF or Cole is actually medically cleared, because this feels like a big leap in the story, considering from day one of the revelation that Wardlow was in this group, Cole kept saying Wardlow is going to win that title for me and give it to me. So if you have this match happen and then there's no payoff to that, I don't know. So I think it's very interesting with the timeline. There was a part of me that never wanted to see Wardlow and Samoa Joe wrestle ever again, but here we are. It's happening, and I don't hate it. I don't know how I feel about this group anymore. Danny nailed it. Like, for a group that is winning, they're also just there. And it really all falls on the shoulders of Adam Cole. Like, Cole being injured is destroying this group, in my opinion. MJF being gone, too, is also destroying this group, in my opinion. But Cole is really just hurting it by not being an imposing leader. And I hope next week can change that. In terms of Joe and Swerve, I agree. This was a rough promo from Swerve, but I think it is simply the transition from heel to babyface. It is a very different dynamic when you're on the mic. So I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. I'm willing to say that he's probably just getting used to it again, and that's fair. But
and also, I think, to be fair to Swerve, like, you don't have to feel remorse for cutting a promo on a baby. Like, fuck those kids. Like, what's the issue?
Truly,
sorry, James.
Just another reason Hangman is losing his mind. But no, I'm loving Joe as champion. I've said it from the day he won it. I don't need a long reign out of him because I'm just happy he won it at all. But with every day that he is champion, he's proving why he is a great champion. So I'm really happy for him. And do we get into the Kyle O'Reilly stuff, or should we just save that for later?
Well, that was a bit later, so I was going to save it for then because there was the match that immediately followed this up.
Yeah, and go ahead.
I was going to just quickly jump into the match because it obviously was, as I said, Samoa Joe and Swerve Strickland versus the Kingdom, and the match wasn't actually very long. Most of it was during the commercial break as Joe started the match, and he was in there from the start all the way through the break until shortly thereafter, where he was able to back into his own corner, and then Swerve tagged himself in as Joe seemingly wanted to do all of this by himself. But it was Swerve who actually single-handedly took out the Kingdom, running through both Taven and Bennett, and winning with a house call and big pressure on Bennett without tagging Joe back in. Then after the match, Kevin hopping in here asking Producer Boy, who is unfortunately not here, to pull up a picture of Isaac Yankum to see how James reacts.
Producer Boy not here because he has a headache. Meanwhile, James had part of his body ripped out of him today or yesterday, and he's here. So,
Well said. After the match, Wardlow walked back out onto the stage, and Swerve started talking shit to him, but he turned his back to Joe after telling Joe to never turn his back to him. Joe took advantage of that, locked him in the coquina clutch, and passed Swerve out while he was staring down Wardlow. And then, as I said, we're getting that match next week at Big Business. So I think there was a pretty solid setup, James. Like, I know, like you said, we don't really want to see this match. It's a very weird time. And I just think maybe it's because the Undisputed Kingdom has fallen a little flat. Maybe they're just going to try to get this out of the way and then do some other stuff with them for a while. I really don't know, but you're right. It's because it's on the shoulders of the seated Adam Cole, perpetually seated Adam Cole.
The match itself was a good showcase for Swerve and the character he's trying to convey. I really enjoyed that aspect.
Told a good story.
Yeah. I didn't love Joe getting the upper hand on Swerve, especially having won on Sunday. I would have had him try to choke out Swerve, and then Swerve kind of shakes him off, and Joe is in between Wardlow and Swerve. Going back to what Kevin said earlier, that the world title picture is so messy right now, I don't really think that the world title picture is messy as much as it's really conveying how hectic it is. So many people right now want a shot at that title, and so many people at the very least have a good argument for it. And throughout all of this, Joe has been just stuck in the middle. Whether it was Hook coming out of nowhere going for the title, whether it was Swerve or Hangman or now Wardlow and this by proxy Adam Cole, so many people are gunning for this title, and that was very much the story of near the end of MJF's reign. MJF really lost to Joe because he kept defending against every challenger who came his way, similar to Orange Cassidy. We're in an era of fighting champions right now. And while Joe might not qualify as that fighting champion, he is still very much at the center of all of these very top caliber contenders. So I don't necessarily think the world title is messy right now, but I think they could have conveyed it a little bit better by literally having him between a rock and a hard place in terms of Swerve and Wardlow. But I am looking forward to that match next week. Like I said earlier, I think Swerve is really going to impress a lot of people as a babyface, and I think Nana is really going to do a big part of that. Is going to be a big part of that. But yeah, I enjoyed this from top of the show to even after the bell. I thought everybody did what they needed to.
Yeah, and Kevin's in the chat saying he didn't find the match very interesting, and I will admit it wasn't a great match, but it did tell the story it needed to tell, where Samoa Joe, who didn't want to be there, tried to take out the Kingdom by himself and was unable to do it. And the guy who he claims he just beat, which he did, even though he didn't pin or submit him, and the guy who he claims he's better than just did what he couldn't do. Mm-hmm. And then, which is why part of the reason why Joe attacked him after the bell. So I thought the match told a good story, especially after everything we had at the top. And then, we can move on into next week with Wardlow Joe, and then we'll see where we go with Swerve.
I don't know if we wanted to read this comment.
Oh, okay. I can go. Kevin, I disagree that so many people deserve a shot at the title. Realistically, the only person I could see being world champion is Swerve or a former champion.
Admittedly, I do think I don't know if this is like a silly difference to me, but I do think there are people who deserve title shots and there are people who deserve to be champion.
Yeah, no,
like I know we all kind of rip on the Roman title reign, but realistically, there's only ever been a short, small handful of guys who should have taken that title off Roman. But at the same time, I appreciate guys like Kevin Owens getting a title shot. I appreciate guys like Drew McIntyre getting a title shot because they earned it, whether it was through storyline or just hard work. But I don't think realistically every one of those guys deserve to be the guy to beat Roman. And I think the same is here with Joe.
You didn't think Cesaro was going to be the guy to beat Roman?
I had it. I lost a lot of money on that bet. The Thunderdome got a little more. The LEDs got a little bit brighter after the money I put into that, but it is what it is.
No, I agree with Kevin in the regard that not everyone deserves a shot at the title, but it's fine. It's when is there ever really that many guys you can see being the world champion? Yeah. It's kind of tough, but I would throw Adam Cole in that list with Swerve of people you could see being the next world champion. Maybe it's weird that I don't even know if I want that per se, but I don't know. I kind of agree with them in the sense that it is messy, and the fact that I just don't know. It's funny that I was more interested in the idea of Hangman winning the title than Swerve, because I think that would have just made their story even better. But it is an interesting spot right now, and it's weird because I think all the mess does come from the Undisputed Kingdom.
Yeah, but I personally think that's going to end up getting wrapped up, at least in the short term next week, especially if Cole is hurt. If Wardlow loses, they don't really have anybody else who deserves to get a shot at the title right now. So hopefully that's what ends up happening. We can kind of do a little rehab with the Undisputed Kingdom and build them back up. And then perhaps one of them, whether it's Wardlow or healthy Adam Cole, end up getting a title shot down the line. And then, James, I think just to kind of bounce off of something you said, where Joe necessarily isn't a fighting champion, he's willing to fight you. You just have to deserve it. And I think that's what's going to limit the number of contenders we get as he continues to hold the title, because he'll just refuse people because he can use the ranking system. He'd be like, you're not even in the top 5. You don't get my title.
I also think that's just a very heel way of trying to avoid matchups. Like, I think it's
Joe can kind of back it up.
Yeah.
I think
for Joe.
Yeah, I'm leaning a little bit more towards agreeing with the Rev on this one. I think he's just saying, I'm not giving out freebies. This isn't an open invitation, and he's not trying to back out of matches with his contenders. He's just trying to make sure he has actual contenders. So I think it works both ways. I think it is a case of having your cake and eating it too. And Kevin said the Hangman was better chasing, and I agree in general. And I usually hate the this person's so much better as chasing than champion, but I think Hangman is truly one of those people, which is why I was so adamant about taking the title away from him immediately. But this version of Hangman, that's a different story. That guy is a champion with one goal in mind, that is keeping the title off of Swerve. So that's the difference with Hangman now and Hangman then. But it's funny that now I'm like, I'm very much more interested in seeing Hangman as champion again than I was when he was a babyface, which is it's fantastic. But it is what it is. Some guys are good or great at chasing, but sucks once they become champ. Yes and no. Like I think that's a blanket statement we throw on too many people, and it's not always warranted, or sometimes it does, or something. Like, it's just, what do you expect if the chase is so good? Like there's always a come down after the high, and then you take that come down as just like the reality of the situation and paint everyone with a brush after that, where it's like, it's just, you gotta take a breath, right? You're just, and James, maybe this is advice for you, but when you hit a certain high, you can't just immediately get to that high again. You gotta pace yourself in between. You gotta take breaks. Otherwise, the highs are just gonna become meaningless. You're not gonna feel anything. So, good luck to you in your journey. But
thank you.
Yeah,
I don't remember getting home yesterday.
Man, you and Jeff both, man.
I didn't drive.
That's good. So you're better than him. You're better than him then.
All right. I'm going to use that opportunity to move on. Much like a lot of things that happened tonight, we're going to have an opportunity to speak about all of them in the future.
Wait, one thing. Terrible night to be a Ring of Honor champion in AEW.
Yep.
Like
3 of them lost.
And
2 of them got buried.
I don't appreciate how they did that. I understand that the belts are just meant to be props to put belts on guys they want you to think are important, but they're not important enough to get an AEW title. I get that. But you can't have them losing constantly, and I feel like they are losing constantly on AEW TV. It's
especially
a
the Kingdom.
Yeah. It's a disservice to see. No, I think Fletcher loses a lot too, but it's a disservice to Ring of Honor, and it's a disservice to those championships. And again, I'm saying this as someone who recognizes Ring of Honor is secondary to AEW, and it's there to prop up AEW even more. But it's these belts aren't Bryan Danielson. You can't have them lose all the time.
Yeah, it does make them look very lesser than. So I do understand where you're coming from.
I mean, they are.
But they should have a little something to them. And if they're constantly losing on AEW TV, like James said, then they're just going to lose all value in AEW. They should have at least a little bit of value, even if it's not the same value as the AEW championships. So.
Like, realistically, Ring of Honor is operating without a world champion right now. That belt got absorbed into an AEW mid-card title.
Yeah, very true. All right, let us move on to a quick backstage interview with Hook. He was going up against Brian Cage for the FTW title, but I think James is going to sign off here. So good night, James. We hope you feel better and recover from your surgery post-haste.
If it makes you feel better, apparently another tooth is coming out. So,
yikes.
Yep. Love you guys. Have a good night.
Night, James.
Do drugs.
Properly.
Safely.
The fun way.
All right. So as I was saying, we were backstage with Hook before his FTW championship match, and Renee asked him about it. But before he can answer, he is interrupted by Chris Jericho. Obviously, they had a little bit of an interaction on Sunday during that All-Star, I think it was 8-man match. And Jericho says that his first match that he ever had in America was against Taz in the ECW arena. And Taz dumped him on his head. And he's respected Taz ever since. And because of that, he's always felt a bit of a connection to Hook, even though he didn't really respect him. Until Hook dumped him on his head on Sunday. And that proved to Jericho that he might be the real deal. And now he respects him and offers Hook a fist bump. Hook just goes, I bet, and fist bumps Jericho and walks away for his match.
Ooh, Jericho, you're slipping. You're late to the game. You're leeching onto someone way too late. You're a little off the mark this time. Hook isn't white hot like he used to be. He's over still, but like, wow, Jericho, you're usually way quicker to leech onto overacts like that. You know.
When they interacted on Sunday, I tweeted out no, just no, and I didn't get my wish. I don't want Hook anywhere near Jericho.
Same.
Oh well. We came back from commercial with the EVPs, as I mentioned earlier, where they teased their announcement. And then we have the aforementioned FTW Championship match, Hook versus Brian Cage. This was obviously fought under FTW rules, so anything goes. And it was pretty cool. A lot of violence, a lot of weapons, some pretty cool gear out of Brian Cage. But at the end of this match, we had Hook, who was able to counter an F5 into the Red Rum. But Cage backed him into the corner where he had wedged a chair into the turnbuckles, and he pushed Hook into that and was able to break up the hold. Cage then grabbed Hook, but as he was doing so, Hook grabbed a kendo stick that was on the floor in front of him and fought Cage off before hitting a T-bone suplex into a pile of thumbtacks that Cage had poured out earlier. Cage is able to kick out of that, so Hook lays in a couple of cross faces and reapplies the Red Rum. But Cage is able to get to his feet and slams Hook down into the tacks. However, Hook is able to hold on, and he eventually passes out Cage and retains his title. After the match, the Gates of Agony, who are still running with Cage, apparently, and maybe not Swerve so much, they come out to jump Hook, and they do so until Jericho comes down with his Bat Floyd, and he's able to clear out the ring and make the save for Hook. This was just a fun match, Danny. Typical hardcore match. Had some good spots. I always love the tacks. And I thought you made Hook look good here. But, as I said, now he's evolved to Jericho, and I just don't want it.
Yeah. That's how I feel. I really like the ending a lot. I thought it was cool that they did the backdrop onto the tacks, and then Hook didn't let go of the hold and won like that. That's a badass spot. Kind of wasted on a nothing match, but I still really liked it. I thought it was really awesome. Like, that's something you can put into like his highlight packages going forward. I think that's really, really cool. I want no part in this Jericho stuff. It's so weird. Jericho's one of my all-time favorites, but you never know by hearing us talk about him on this podcast. Like, it's insane.
It's almost the reverse of what happened with Adam Copeland, where we're very pro him in AEW, but maybe not so much in WWE, or at least his latest run. And Jericho's latest run in WWE was great, but his more recent stuff, I guess maybe the last year, maybe even two of AEW stuff, it hasn't been as good just because all of these feuds just go too long. They start fine, but they go on forever.
Yeah, and then once we all realize that he just leeches on to whatever the hottest act is, yeah, it's kind of hard. And then that's taking aside all the real life stuff that we don't exactly have answers to, so we're not going to talk about them as if they're true or false. But it's just, I don't know. I think everyone's just kind of collectively over Jericho, and I don't know. I don't want to keep dunking on him, but what else is there to say, right?
Yeah, I don't want Hook to get caught up in this vortex of Jericho, at least not for too long. And I understand Jericho's been a little bit aimless ever since Kenny, unfortunately, had to take his leave. But this, I don't think, is what anybody wanted. So
yeah, and with Sammy being suspended on the down low, it's also he has even less direction, which is a weird situation. Which why is Sammy suspended? I don't understand how that's his fault and that he's the one suspended in that situation. You know?
From what I understand, it was because he did a move he wasn't supposed to do. He called something on the fly, and I think that is what ended up injuring Jeff Hardy. And then after that happened, they continued the match instead of stopping it. So Sammy got suspended. I don't know why Jeff or the referee or the doctors haven't been disciplined, but
yeah, that's what it doesn't.
The reporting hasn't said they have been. So
yeah, so that's just the way we don't have all the information on that, so we can't fully comment on it. But I just think it's a little weird. I'm not gonna usually be one to stick up for Sammy, unless it's when he fought Andrade, which I think he was completely in the right for, and Andrade's a bitch, and I'm so upset he's on Raw. But but at least he wrestled to no reaction on Monday, so that's nice. But I just don't get it. But it's just another reason that Jericho has even less going on right now, and we'll see if anything actually more comes out about that, and anything that has to do with that. But it is what it is. Hopefully Hook is done with this quickly.
Yeah. Even if you look at the longer timeline of the Sammy Jericho stuff too, all the stuff surrounding Jericho came out right around the time of World's End. Then Jericho kind of went away for a little while, so Sammy was on his own fighting Hobbs, and now Sammy's going away, and Jericho's back and seemingly, not radioactive, but Sammy's not around to help him with whatever he's doing. So it was just a mess between the two of them. And both of them lost a lot of direction as the other one happened to go out for whatever reason. All right, let's move now to a backstage interview with Orange Cassidy and the Best Friends. This followed a quick video package for the recently announced tag team tournament. Obviously, those titles are going to be vacated in the near future. And the video package was pretty cool. They showed a lot of the old tag team champions, the great ones like Kenny and Hangman and the Bucks, FTR, the Acclaimed. So it was a cool package. And that led to an interview, like I said, with OC and the Best Friends. Renee started by asking Orange what his plans are, now that he's unfortunately lost the International Championship. And Orange says that he just wants to continue to fill his backpack with gold. Renee then turns to the Best Friends and asks if they want to join the tournament, for which we just saw the video package for. And they want to, but Chuck is still injured, so he can't do it. Chucky then proposes that Orange and Trent's team up, and they join the tournament, saying that he got a match for them on Rampage, and then they can go on and win the whole damn thing. And then hands in everybody, including Renee, win the whole damn thing. Orange is your boy. I was going to give you the space to speak there.
It's weird because, he is, but man, I just want Best Friends to win the tag titles. And if it's not Chucky and Trent, it's just not right.
Yeah.
But maybe, and I don't know how close this guy is to being cleared. Maybe by the end of this tournament, Orange can't go. They make it to the finals, but Orange, the wear and tear has caught up to him. He can't get cleared. And then Chucky steps in, and then they win, because I just want them to win the tag title so badly. But realistically, if that's not possible, then I just think Claudio and Mox are going to win this, and that's awesome. So I don't see this ending badly no matter what, but I wish, I still think, as much as people say Proud and Powerful not winning the tag titles has been a travesty in AEW's history, and it is, the Best Friends not winning it is equally up there. It's fucking ridiculous. But like I said, if Chucky can get clear by the end of this, I want Best Friends to win it. If not, just give it to Claudio and Mox because they've had some great matches with FTR, and fuck it, put the tag titles on them. Give BCC gold again, and get them back in the fray.
Yeah, have BCC, two guys in the BCC having gold would be really cool. I do like your idea of Chucky having to bail them out at the end. It's almost like the reverse of what happened to SCU for the very first tag team tournament when they were establishing the original champions. If not, just let the three of them freebird it. Even Rocky too. I don't care. I'll still take the Best Friends title reign that way. However, there's still this nagging thought in my mind that Trent is going to turn on at least Orange sooner than later. I don't know why.
Yeah.
He's been teasing it a little bit. I think that might come down the pipeline in the near future, and I'm scared because I like all of them together.
Yeah, it's just, especially it's too late. Like the ship has sailed with Trent. I said it early doors. I think he was always set up to be a big singles guy in AEW, but the injuries just kept happening.
Yeah.
And then so that never happened. So now it's kind of too late. If he doesn't stay in Best Friends, he's not going to really accomplish much. So hopefully they don't. But if they do, like it's been in tease for a long enough time that we can't say that we're shocked. We'll just be heartbroken.
Fair play. Okay, moving on. We had the Killswitch Daddy Magic match and the Adam Copeland return that we talked about. And then we got to a backstage interview with Kyle O'Reilly. Cool Kyle is back, and Renee asks him how he feels about that. And he says he never thought he'd be able to wrestle again, so he's very, very grateful. Renee then asks about his face-off with the Undisputed Kingdom on Sunday, and he says while he loves and respects those guys, he's so far down the mountain that he doesn't know what path to take. So for now, he's going to go it alone. Obviously, not a whole lot here. I think we can see that at the moment he's not joining with Undisputed Kingdom, which I'm cool with. But Danny, since you didn't talk with us on Sunday, I'm sure you have a lot of thoughts about Cool Kyle coming back.
Oh, I'm ecstatic. He is my favorite of the Undisputed lads by far. He is just the best. I love his body language in the ring. I love the way he carries himself. I love the way he sells. I love the air guitar with the titles. I think he is phenomenal. And if he wants to go on a singles run, I am so for that. No offense to Robert Fish, but you don't got to bring this guy back. He doesn't need to be in a tag team. Kyle O'Reilly can just go at it alone. He can be a singles champ. Hey, maybe he takes the international title off Roddy. Maybe he's a TNT champion later this year, like towards the end of the year or something. I don't know. But Kyle is fantastic. I'm thrilled. And the fact that he's going to be a face right now, seemingly, and he's friends with the biggest heel stable in the company, that's an interesting dynamic. I always liked those dynamics. I loved when Drew McIntyre was the WWE champion as a face and he was friends with Sheamus and they would interact despite Sheamus being a heel. Like, that's always a fun dynamic. I'm going to talk about a face and heel dynamic a little bit later in the show as well, but it's a fun dynamic to have, and it's always interesting to me anyway. So I'm very much excited about that, and I'm glad he's not just another part of the faction, especially because this faction sucks. But he's already better than them in my eyes, so that's great. I'm thrilled he's back. I'm so happy. What a reaction he got too. I'm very happy for him.
Yeah, I'm thrilled he's back. He's always been one of my favorite Undisputed guys in the ring. And then I did love the air guitar as well. And then I think once the Undisputed era broke up and he got to have that singles run, I really came around on him outside of the ring as well. So I do love him. I'm glad he's back, both on personal levels and for himself, because he just seems so, like he said, grateful to be able to be back in AEW after he had such a horrific concussion. Kevin agreeing with us, saying that he loves Kyle as well. And
it's hard to find people who don't love Kyle.
Yeah, everyone loves cool Kyle. All right, moving on, we had the debut of Okada, as I mentioned earlier, and then
no big deal.
Then we jumped into Kris Statlander versus Riho. I felt so bad for these women having to follow that because I was really, really excited for this match. And even if it was in like the time slot of death, they probably would have gotten a better reaction than they did here because eventually they did get the crowd really, really into it by the end. But at the beginning, everyone was still buzzing from Okada. I think I spent more time texting people about Okada than unfortunately watching this match. Plus, my food was done by the time it ended, so I had to do that too. We'll jump to the end where after Riho was able to kick out of a powerbomb, and even before that, Riho was throwing in a bunch of like great dragon suplexes and stuff that Statlander had to keep kicking out of. And then Stat finally caught her and hit that powerbomb, and that's where the crowd really started getting into it. So after the powerbomb that Riho kicked out of, Stokely threw a chain once again into the ring and distracted referee. I think it was Aubrey Edwards. Statlander picked it up. This time looking at it a lot longer than she did last time, contemplating whether or not she should use it for eventually deciding against it and throwing it out of the ring. However, Riho was able to use that distraction to roll Statlander up, but Statlander outpowers her and hits a suplex. Stat suplexes her a few more times, basically tossing her around the ring before going for what I believe was Wednesday Night Fever, but Riho is able to counter, roll Statlander up, and get the pinfall win. After the match, the Statlander was pretty pissed off at Stokely for distracting her as the broadcast team argued back and forth whether or not Statlander should have used the chain. Danny, like I said, tough spot on the card for these women, but I do think they delivered a really good match. I might go back and watch this in full because I missed a decent chunk of it. But what I saw, I really, really enjoyed, and I expect nothing less from these two very talented women.
Oh man, so I'm gonna give this a lot more than the company does, and I'm gonna I get into it. I'm like a big Statlander fan, so that's probably like where a bulk of it's coming from. But this match was good. They won the crowd over hard by the end, which you love to see. Yep. You know, that's good. Like you said, they were in a tough spot, but I guess they're used to it, and they just decided to not let that weigh them down and get a great reaction from the crowd regardless. So that's good. But right off the bat, I don't get Riho, man. I know I say it all the time. I don't get it, man.
It's the music, I'm telling you.
I guess, but it's like I feel like her music sounds a lot like a bunch of other people's musics too. But I'm now, if I could complain a little bit, I'm so sick of Statlander losing. At least there's a point to it, and they are telling a story. So like I am forgiven of it. And it's like, damn, this girl's since she lost the TBS title, they went out of their way to protect her and not have her be pinned in that match. And then she's like been pinned like 4 times in a month, like recently.
Yeah.
But watch more anime. You've never seen anime in your life. I do watch anime. She won at the pay-per-view in a tag match, but she's lost a lot of her singles matches lately.
Yeah, she has lost a few, mostly because of Stokely.
Yeah, which is the point. There's a story to it at least. And she's not the one winning those matches. Willow's won those tag matches, which again is the point. Willow's been winning their singles matches. Willow's won the tag matches for them. Statlander's been losing. Stokely's been getting involved. He's trying to corrupt Statlander. Willow and Statlander are trying to turn Stokely face, which is the part I like about this, the heel face dynamic of this guy saw something in Stat. He wanted to be her manager. He wanted to turn her heel because he saw that potential in her. But instead, she's trying to turn him face, and she's enlisted Willow to help turn her face. But instead, Willow might be the reason the Statlander doesn't inevitably give in and turn heel. Or maybe, and this is me just throwing out like over-the-top nonsense, maybe she does turn heel, but Stokely stays face and aligns with Willow or something. You know, they might, like, which is a very convoluted, unnecessary way to book this when it's probably just going to be Statlander is going to turn on Willow sooner rather than later because Willow's the one who keeps winning. Willow's the one, who's somehow benefited from this relationship with Stokely, whereas Statlander is taking loss after not losing for almost not for 6 months since coming back,
Yeah.
So it's an interesting story where I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm annoyed she keeps losing, but I'm like, there's a point to it and there's a story involved and the story's not bad. And oh my God, it's a woman's story and it's actually working to some degree and it's interesting and it's on TV every week. The Saraya Ruby stuff with Parker, that's not on TV every week. Where the fuck was that, this week? Maybe it'll be on Rampage again. Who knows?
Yeah, it's usually Rampage or Collision.
The Statlander, Willow, Stokely stuff has been on TV every week for the past 8 weeks in some fucking miracle in AEW's women's division history. And that there's no, there's a title involved because now Julia Hart's circling around it again. And I don't think Willow's going to win the title from her. But if she does, I think that'll only amp up the potential Statlander heel turn, which I don't want, but I'm interested to see what that would be like because she's only ever been a babyface since coming in.
Yep.
But so like I said, I'm annoyed. I just also it's that it's to Riho. I think that's my biggest gripe with this. Riho,
like her or not, though. Like her or not,
I don't know what she adds to the division though. At this point,
she is a former champion, so at least Statlander is not just getting jobbed out to some rando. She did lose to somebody with credentials.
Yeah, but her losing to Sky Blue the week before does more because that gives Sky Blue something who's needs to be built up.
Yeah.
Whereas with Riho, it's Riho just lost to Tony. She's not going after a title. What purpose does this serve? And now I get it. Willow's gonna beat her next week because that match was announced for next week, and that's the point. So I get that. I understand it. I think I just don't like Riho, and that's my biggest problem with it.
That's fair. And just for the record, the Sky Blue win was dirty as all hell, so that also protected Stat, but it is still a loss. I'll just jump down for a second and discuss the backstage interview between Stokely Hathaway and Willow Nightingale, where Renee asked Stokely what happened with Statlander, and Stokely said that he thinks Statlander is one of, if not the best female wrestler in the company, and his favorite. She just needs to accept help from those who love her, which is a very interesting way to phrase it. Renee then, as you said, Danny, tells Willow she'll be facing Riho. Was it on Collision? I think it was. And that actually made Willow a little nervous. Willow does, however, talk herself into believing she can beat the former women's world champion since she and Statlander just beat Julia Hart and Sky Blue. And then she says that she can be a champion and she'll be gunning for Julia. And that is if, she can get through Riho. So I do think you're right. I do think Willow's going to beat Riho. I was actually bandying back and forth in my head if they were both going to turn heel or it was just going to be Stat. And I think you're right. I think it's just going to be Statlander. And I'm sure it'll be cool. It's going to break my heart, man. I love Statlander.
Sam, they could also turn... they could just turn Willow heel, and that would be even more shocking because as much as I'm like, oh, what could Stat be like as a heel? It's bro, Willow is a heel? Who would have thought it? But
yeah,
Kevin...
I don't want that either. And that would be more shocking, but I said this, she's Bailey levels of great, especially for kids. So I think they kind of keep her where she is.
I wouldn't put her at Bailey level, but
she can get there. People fucking love her.
She botches a lot, but
oh no, she's not as good as the ring, but it's just her effervescence.
Yeah, I get that. She has it, but I think there's a chance. That's the thing about this. And it's weird because I used to shit on Stokely so much, but now that he's in the perfect spot for him, it works. Him trying to main event or trying to manage a serious faction didn't work. This works. Just to go run through some comments because it's been funny. A win's a win. Yeah, she keeps losing singles matches, so who cares if she wins a tag match? That's the point. But that's part of the story. Is that she's only winning with Willow. Does Watership Down count as anime?
I'm throwing the we don't go on tangents on here because I've been reading this and
Oh yeah, I've lost the plot a little bit. What a heartbreaking story. That book would make Danny cry, or a lot of shit would make me cry. It's not really that impressive. It's fucked up showing that to kids.
It was.
I was like 7. Oof.
Yeah, no, I think no. When did I read? I read it in middle school. I'm pretty sure, and then we saw the movie. I remember maybe I was younger. Maybe it was like 5th grade. That shit fucked me up, yo.
Yeah,
that is not a book for kids, but it's just got bunnies in it, so people think it is. No, do not show that to children. that should be like a borderline R. It's probably a PG because I think it came out before PG-13, but that movie is like a borderline R.
Fuck it. You gotta fuck kids up at a young age, so you might as well.
Yeah.
You might as well show them. But isn't it crazy? It felt nice to like give a good amount of time to the women's segment, and it's like I said, it's small victories, and we gotta take them where we can get them. But like I said, the fact that this has been a running story for like months now is almost a miracle by AEW standards. So we'll take those wins where we can get them.
And Danny, guess what? More women's segments. We actually, in between the match and the backstage interview, had a different backstage interview, and this one was with Timeless Tony Storm
and regular Tony Storm.
Yeah, I was thinking of a way to figure that out. Yes, regular Tony Storm. So they showed a couple of highlights of Tony's win on Sunday, especially how she was able to cheat at the end of the match. And Renee asked regular Tony Storm how she felt about retaining her title in such a dubious manner. Timeless Tony Storm then popped out from behind Mariah May, saying, "Ha, got you, Renee." And she then says she tricked Renee the same way that she tricked Deanna into believing she could be world champion. Tony then asks Renee what season it is, and Renee responds, "It's almost spring." And Tony says, "Well, at least you're a lot better looking than you are smart." And says, "No, it's award season." Tony then announces the very first ever Tony Awards with an I, so they don't get sued on Collision. Where she will be presenting awards to, I guess, various people. She hasn't said what, who or what or whatever. Tony then presents Mariah with her first piece of merchandise, a new shirt, exactly the way Tony's used to look, except it's Mariah in Tony's old gear, and it obviously has Mariah's name on it. I am loving this new Mariah step in Mariah's story with Tony. Tony now not only actually acknowledging her, but really getting behind her and accidentally helping Mariah become her, which is, I think, something we kind of discussed when Mariah first came on the scene. And a lot of people on the internet were referring back to a very old movie that they're probably cribbing off of, where, an aging actress takes a younger actress under her wing, and that younger actress eventually usurps the older one as her and tries to steal her roles and her husband and all of her accolades and stuff. And watching Tony accidentally facilitating this is great.
I like that you use the word cribbing. I haven't heard that in a long time. Sorry, it was just a small thing. I was like, okay.
Yeah, it's a good word.
Yeah, it's a good word. But yeah, I think you summed it up really well. Like it's actually refreshing. I remember when Mariah came in and it was like, okay, this is interesting. But then a couple weeks in, it's like, I feel like they skipped a bunch of steps in establishing the relationship, and Tony was already treating her kind of poorly. But now I feel like we found the perfect balance where this act is just firing on all cylinders. And I'm so excited for the Tony Awards, which usually I'm not. So this is very refreshing. So I'm pumped about this. I think it's going to be a great segment. I love Mariah May and the old Tony Storm getup. It's insane how everything this girl is doing just works week after week. It's really never a dud. It's always entertaining. And we have two things going on in the women's division simultaneously. It's unheard of. We're living in unprecedented times. This is crazy.
Oh, but Danny, there's more from the women's division. I'm jumping it because it worked. There was the Darby Allin segment, but after that we had a backstage segment with Julia Hart and Sky Blue. Obviously, they lost to Willow and Statlander on Sunday, so Julia's pretty pissed, and she offers an house open challenge, I believe, on Rampage to remind everybody who the TBS champion is. This was actually a lot cooler, where she kind of ran off like her titles like she was freaking Daenerys Targaryen, and it made her come off really cool, really powerful, and like this just awesome member of the House of Black. So it's got a whole 4 women's segments. It's not bad. In a very stacked show.
Yeah, it's not bad at all. You know, it'd be nice if it was 2 matches, 2 segments, but you know, we'll get there. We'll get there eventually. You know, I consider Sky Blue and Julia Hart tied into the Willow and Kris story at the moment. But once whoever turns on the babyface side, I think Julia will go on to different things, because like I said, I don't see Willow winning the TBS title out of this, unless, I don't know, maybe like I said, I don't know. That's the good thing about this, that they're telling a story with multiple people in it and different sub stories going on in that. So, you know, this is pretty cool. And, you know, just to touch on the House of Black promo was good too, that happened like right after, and the Briscoe follow-up was good too. But, you know, a lot of promos tonight. I don't mind that. Like, you know, maybe that's the sports entertainment fan to me, but, you know, I like a good amount of promos between wrestling matches. I don't want just matches. So, you know, I was all for this. A lot of these backstage promos and segments.
Yeah, I think just because there's a lot of setting up they need to do, and, you know, tying of loose ends they need to do after the pay-per-views, we do end up with a lot of episodes of Dynamite coming off the pay-per-views that end up being a bit more promo heavy than match heavy. And I think we ended up with a lot of great promos tonight, and a lot of was due to the fact that we got some returns and some debuts, or re-debuts, I guess, so to speak. So I think that all worked out very well. Just to touch upon the House of Black, Mark Briscoe stuff you mentioned, apparently they've been beefing. So they just, you know, threatened to burn Briscoe alive on Collision. So that'll be cool.
As you do.
Yep. And then we went over to Renee, who was with Mark, and Mark challenged them to an Atlanta street fight, even if he has to do it himself, because apparently he doesn't have any partners in this yet. However, Jay Lethal then comes over and says that he needs to man up and help his friend over 20 years. And Mark is really happy that he's helping, but he doesn't want Jay to bring Jeff Jarrett. However, Lethal says this is a street fight, and we could use someone slimy like Jarrett in that. So he says, look, you don't have to trust Jarrett, just trust me. And Mark agrees. Good promo. I'm sure that match is going to be a lot of fun. And I think we're probably getting closer to Lethal, Jarrett, and the rest of the Slapnuts. So it's been an interesting thing to watch.
Yeah.
Let's back up a little bit for what is the last segment we need to cover tonight, which was an in-ring interview with Darby Allin. Obviously, Darby almost killed himself on Sunday, and retained, you know, his AEW World Tag Team Championships along with Sting in Sting's final match. So Tony Schiavone asked Darby what's next for him, and Darby starts by thanking everybody, saying how hard this promo was going to be, because he used to be homeless just 40 minutes from Atlanta. And he says, as if for what's next, he has a match with Switchblade Jay White next week at Big Business, and then he's off to climb Mount Everest. Darby then gets like real, because he says that there's no guarantee he comes back. There is a chance he does die climbing this mountain. So he thanks everybody for allowing him to live his dream. And if next week is his last match, he's going to go out fighting for his life. And Darby, very emotional in this, because it literally might be his last promo in AEW, which is so fucking weird to say. He also then says he is not going to defend the tag titles anymore, even though people have been asking him why he doesn't just go get a new partner and do so. And the obvious answer is because you cannot replace Sting. As he finishes saying this and he's about to walk out, we actually hear a bit of a bell toll, similar to maybe a certain dead man from a different company, that used to run a funeral home. And then Switchblade Jay White's music come out, and he comes down to the ring with the guns. Jay starts saying, while Darby kept his word in almost killing himself to allow Sting to retire on top, he said he was very stupid in jumping through that pane of glass, and that the Bucks did the smart thing by getting out of the way. White says that without Sting, he thinks Darby is just a lost little puppy without anybody to hold his leash, and makes him an offer. He says that they don't have to fight next week, saying there are worse things that can happen when you step in the ring with him outside of just a couple of scratches. Plus, if he's going to go to Everest, and it could be his, final time in AEW, what if instead Darby joins up with the Bang Bang Scissor Gang? He doesn't have to fight Jay. And then they can go in the back and he's against Scissor Daddy Ass and have a good time. Jay's even thought of a name for him. Darby Scissorhands. Because, he kind of looks the part. Darby finally yells at Jay White to shut up, asking him if he's done. Jay says he is. And Darby said that while Jay White has main evented the Tokyo Dome twice and won titles all around the world, he hasn't done anything since he's gotten to AEW except play with cardboard. So Darby doesn't believe the hype, and that match is going to happen no matter what. Darby then throws his mic down and whispers something into Jay White's ear, and whatever it was caused Jay to step to Darby, but Darby put Sting's bat right in Jay's neck, and the guns hold Jay back, telling them that he'll get him next week. Saying I don't really get the whole climb mountains thing. Honestly, neither do I, but Darby's a risk taker, a thrill seeker, and I don't think there's a much more riskier than climbing Everest.
Oh yeah, Everest death tolls are higher than they've ever been. So good luck, buddy. I don't really get climbing mountains. Yeah, I mean, I do and I don't. Like, I'll go on a hike. Like, a hike's fun.
I don't even hike.
But like climbing Everest, like, nah, that's
yeah. I got a deal. I don't fuck with nature, and it don't fuck with me. So I'm not climbing any mountains anytime soon. But Danny, considering this might actually be Darby's final promo, I thought this was very good. At least the front half of it was good and touching. And I hope he got to say everything he wanted to say before he leaves for Nepal. And then I thought the back and forth with Jay White and him was very good leading up to his match next week. Or their match next week, excuse me.
I really wish that James and Producer Boy were here. Because, man, if Darby's last match ever potentially could be next week, what a fucking waste of it being against Jay White. Like, man, like I said, I wish they were here because Eric would have just kicked me out of the right now. But
I'm not going to, but I think you're wrong. But continue.
yeah, sure. I'll get you there eventually. I'll talk you onto my side. If his last match should have been against Christian, right? If he's gonna potentially die, who better than for it to have been Christian? I understand Christian's got a story going on right now, but like Ed's return could have been put off till after the Darby match. He could have put it off by 1 week, and that and then Christian does it, and then if Darby dies, it still works out business wise because Christian gets a lot of good material. We get a great tribute show, and so on and so forth.
He has
and
Nick Wayne. I guess
I'm talking in a cavalier way because Darby talked about it as a reality, so we might as well talk about it like that too. But why? I was annoyed when they announced the match in the first place because I guess you imagine Jay White wins, but it's like, bro, like, why? He just wrestled in Sting's retirement match. Don't beat him his very next match. That's so dumb. Like, many people tuned in, like, or at least are watching clips to see Sting's retirement. They're like, oh, that's his protege. That's his guy. Let me follow that guy. And then you watch him lose his first match. Like, that's
who's the guy bleeding all over the place that helps Sting.
Yeah. We're like, bro, who's that fucking crash test dummy that Sting likes so much? Let me check him out. And then he loses the very next match. And to someone like Jay White, who I jokingly make fun of all the time to piss off Producer Boy, but like, who isn't anywhere high. He's not higher on the card than Darby. And to be honest, he isn't in a position where he should be Darby. But my biggest gripe with this, the actual true gripe with this, is why. Like, Jay White came out here. This makes no sense. Like, he's in a babyface faction right now. Why is he coming out playing like heel Jay White from like 3 or 4 months ago? Like, there's a reason they came out with just the Ass Boys and not the rest of his faction. This made no sense. It was so out of character. It just felt like they needed a heel, and they're like, "Oh, Jay White, he was a heel like recently. Like, we'll just use him, I guess." Like, it didn't make any sense to me, and it just felt like granted, the Bang Bang Scissor Gang isn't like lighting the world on fire and isn't this amazing story or faction, but like it didn't make any sense. It feels like they're ignoring what's going on like on the television around them. Like, yeah, Jay White's just gonna be a heel for this week and next week, and then they'll go right back to the button heads relationship with the Acclaimed after that. And I didn't like it. I don't see the benefit in any of this. I think Darby should go out on a win, just like Sting. So like if he beats Jay White, fine. But then Producer Boy's gonna cry a fucking river about it. And like it is what it is. But like, I didn't like this. Honestly, for a lot of reasons. And a lot of them based around Jay White, but not because of the normal reasons I pick on Jay White, but just because I genuinely feel it didn't make sense for him to be this guy right now.
You bring up some good points. Enough good points to the point where Producer Boy just jumped in the background, and he's probably going to start pulling tweets up calling you an idiot. I think don't end the... I think that Jay White
Sorry.
at any other point probably would have been a great choice for this. Because I actually think what he had to say would have propelled a pretty interesting story arc for Darby. What does he do now that Sting is gone? Right? And some of what he said about about Darby being a lost puppy dog. Should Jay White beat him next week, and Darby was still sticking around, I think we actually would have made for a very compelling television. We do run into the problem that A, Darby is not sticking around, and B, Jay White, as you said, is currently in a face faction. So him coming out and talking all this shit is a little out of character for where he is now. Not on a whole. Like, obviously, this is Jay White in a nutshell. Actually, no, this is Jay White in a nutshell. Help, I'm in a nutshell. But this is who Jay White normally is. So it's not totally out of character for him. I do think that Jay White has been in a holding pattern with the Bang Bang Scissor Gang faction just because they don't really have anywhere else to put him at the moment. I've been saying that for weeks. I think a win over Darby could help propel him and give him a very good win over somebody people love leading forward. But, dear God, if you're going to have him beat Darby, you got to break the Bang Bang Scissor Gang up like now. Like, what are you doing? You're going to have him beat one of the biggest baby faces in the company and go back to some of the other biggest baby faces in the company and just have him try to, like, hand wave the fact that he probably cheated to beat a guy that might go die in a mountain. Like, it's a weird spot for Jay. And while, yes, the Christian stuff I think would have worked, I think that's a great idea as well. Any other point, Jay White's the guy here. It's just where he is with the Bang Bang Scissor Game right now and the Acclaimed. It's just, I want to like it, but you make some really good points about how confusing it is.
Yeah, that genuinely is like, I wanted to make fun of it to annoy Eric and James mostly, but like it genuinely doesn't make sense for Jay White to be this guy, especially when it's like, yeah, this dude could fucking die on this mountain.
2 months ago, it makes sense, right? Like 2 months ago, Jay White, you would probably be okay with it. Pre-Bang Bang,
yeah. Not that it makes sense, but like it's just like, yeah, it could be any heel. And sure, why not Jay White? Yeah. But like now it's like it makes just no sense. Yeah, Darby, please don't die. look, I'm not defending some of the bumps that Darby takes. I do think some of them are fucking ridiculous and unnecessary. Not that I don't pop for them like a hypocrite, but like, climbing Mount Everest is more dangerous than all the spots he takes. Like, it's not a thing I think reasonable people really want to do. It's people who have too much of the adrenaline junkie mentality, and then like rich people who think they're bulletproof, who hopefully do die on the mountain. I didn't say anything, but it's very interesting to see. It's weird. I don't know. Next week's going to be a very, very interesting show, and I can't imagine what's going to happen at all on any parts of the show, but should be interesting.
Yeah, at least in this context, I have to imagine, win or lose, Darby will be getting his flowers next week. Boston better bring it. I'm sure they will. They've always been a very good wrestling town. So,
I mean, what else is going to happen that they're going to pop for anyway? So, like,
Yeah, I think outside of this match, and I was gonna say like there's the AEW title match, but we've seen Joe versus Wardlow.
it wasn't
I genuinely can't think of what. I don't even know why they're billing it as such a big.
Yeah, what's the big business? I don't get it, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, it's literally just Boston. I don't even know what's special about Boston.
Yeah,
like,
right.
Cool. I was a big fan of the 2004 World Series and everything, but like,
it was just because they beat the Yankees. That's all we cared about. Once they went on the Worlds, I couldn't care less if they won.
Yeah, and that's why they swept, because I was like, yeah, I mean, of course, now you just sweep because who cares about the games after that? You did the impossible. You came back from 3-0. That's where the story was. But that's a good tweet. What's next for Darby Allin? Probably death. See ya. I think that's yeah. All right. Let's do a fuck. I wish James was here to be uncomfortable, but let's fucked up question to end the night.
Oh God.
Is Darby Allin alive at the end of 2024?
I hope so. I really do. I don't want to consider the alternative. I think that's just, it sucks to live in that world. So I'm really hoping that he doesn't. And
oh God.
Get that fucking bigot off of my screen.
Yeah, I know, but that's a funny tweet. Yeah.
I'm ending this before he puts something on the screen we can't fucking get past. So all right, that was Dynamite. The only thing after the Darby segment was obviously the main event. So, well, the 2 hours back was then the main event. So we already covered all of that. Danny, I thought this was a great Dynamite coming off one of AEW's best pay-per-views. The return of Adam Copeland, as I mentioned earlier, and the re-debut of Kazuchika Okada were huge. Joe versus the Volcano. Good movie. I never actually saw it, but I've heard great things. It's on my list of movies I really want to watch. I think as you mentioned, and we talked about a bit, a little promo heavy, but I think it still worked out. The matches we had were very good, especially that main event, or at least they told a very good story, as in the Swerve Joe match. So I really enjoyed this episode of Dynamite, and I think we have a lot of momentum, even moving into this weekend on Collision, but especially next week into Big Business.
Yeah, good show. I was very happy with it. A great follow-up to the pay-per-view. And there's a lot of interesting stories. Some I'm not into, but some I'm very into. So I was a fan of this Dynamite. I'm very excited for next week. It's going to be fun.
Yeah. All right. And on that note, I would like to thank everybody so much for watching us here at the Market Down Podcast. We would appreciate it if you liked and subscribed. If you're on YouTube, if you're on Twitter, you could just like the tweet, follow us over there. Liking stuff lets us know that you're enjoying the content. If you subscribe or follow, it lets us, it lets you follow us along even further. We have plenty of shit coming out almost every day. Usually we have the Gym Pack Zone on Thursdays, but James had a really difficult time getting through his dental surgery tonight. So I'm not sure about Gym Pack Zone. It might be on hiatus just for a couple of weeks. But if you are a TNA Impact person, be sure to subscribe so you can check out James cover that every Thursday. We sometimes have Danny's Raw Fast Forwards on Monday. I imagine those will be picking up a little bit more as we get closer to WrestleMania. So
yeah, absolutely. And also, I do the Raw review more than James does the Gym Pack Zone. I just want to put that out there.
This is fair, although I would have to check the numbers. So if you're a WWE fan, you can check that out. We sometimes maybe do SmackDown, but not too much. And then obviously we are back here on Wednesdays for AEW Dynamite, along with covering most of the major pay-per-views, if not all of them. If you want to follow us on any social media, you can check us out on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. If you're here on YouTube, you can check out the links in the description below. If you are on Twitter or listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, where you can also get us, our Twitter at marketdown_pod, at Instagram at marketdownpod, and our YouTube is youtube.com/marketdown3665. Danny, any final notes before we get out of here?
Be nice to animals. Don't drink and drive.
I can only echo those sentiments. So for Dana Hernandez, James Asante, who left earlier, and producer boy in the background, my name is Nick Cummings. Thank you so much for watching us here at the Market Down Podcast. Have a good night, everybody. Go ahead, producer boy.
He said he can't play it out.
Oh, okay. I got it. Bye, guys.